Star Trek vs. Star Wars. The Beginning by Darius Trent. Chapter 10. The End. And you're absolutely sure there's nothing else you could do? Questioned Admiral Picard. As I told you before, Kerala left us with no option, answered Trent, slightly impatient at how he had answered the question 2 times before. He was going to make his escape and get away with it. And as we couldn't disable them with our phases, we had no choice but to use Lieutenant Hawk's idea of transporting our quantum torpedoes onto their ship to destroy them. I agree with you, replied Picard, tugging down at his uniform in his seat in the Enterprise's ready room. Given the same circumstances and options, I'd probably go with you on that one. I must say it was an excellent idea to replace your schematics with a computer virus. Thank you, sir, thanked Trent. We had the virus lying around after the war. Both the Arizona and the Galway had it on there in case the Jem'Hadar attacked and captured us. I understand you have something else to show me? Queried Picard. Yes, I was about to get to that actually, started Trent. He pressed a few buttons on the desktop computer and turned it around, showing Picard a map of the surrounding area within 15 light years, with various red dots and some red lines connecting them. My chief engineer came up with a method of using our subspace transceiver array to detect their ships in the region they call hyperspace. With access to one of their hyperdrives, he managed to modify our transceiver to scan for recent entry and exit points from hyperspace. This is what he found after his first scan 2 hours ago. The red dots signify an entry or exit point, and the lines indicate the direction the vessel in hyperspace had to take to get there. Trent explained as he got up to point at the map for Picard. These must be probes left over from when the Devastator was probing the region, figured Picard. They must have spread out even beyond the range of this map by now. Princess Leia tells me that these probes are used to map routes for their vessels to travel in, described Trent. They're also described as being highly elusive. If they come under a tractor beam by another vessel, they'll instantly self-destruct. I want the modifications to your transceiver array sent to me immediately, ordered Picard. I'm ordering all starships within a 300 light-year radius of the Iva system to search for any signs of these probes and destroy them on sight. And what about us? Eagerly asked Trent. You and your crew have been through enough recently. You'll be allowed to proceed to Starbase 75 for 1 month shore leave, answered Picard. Thank you, Admiral, replied Trent. This means a lot for my crew. Anytime, Captain, finished Picard. I hear that you and Captain Styles are planning a cricket match at Starbase 75. Yes, we are, sir, gladly replied Trent. We're hoping to do it within the next few weeks. Well, if we can finish off getting rid of the probes here, you can bet on my attendance. Thank you, sir. It'll mean a lot to us. Both men shook hands before Trent walked out of the ready room. Sickbay on the USS Arizona was usually not busy at this time of day. However, today sickbay was full of crew members with various injuries, mainly sustained during the battle, whereas others were inflicted during the escape of the prisoners on the Arizona. Chief Medical Officer Dolovane, who would normally attempt to bust himself with paperwork, now found himself operating on patients' plasma burns with dermal regenerators, ordering his medical staff to perform various operations on crew members to get them back up and running. Princess Leia walked into sickbay, escorted by the droids R2-D2 and C-3PO. The 2 droids were bickering with each other as they walked in, only to be silenced by Leia as soon as Dolovane turned his attention to her. You asked to see me? Asked Leia. Yes, there is something urgent I need to talk to you about, replied Dolovane as he moved away from the patient he was working on. Ensign Conway, can you treat this man while I talk to the princess? Yes, sir, answered Conway as she walked over with her medical tricorder. He walked over to his office, Leia following. You know, when you first came in, the scans showed you were an ordinary human. Dolovane explained as he sat down at his desk, Leia sitting down at the guest chair in front of him. But I delved a little bit more into the transporter logs, and I found thousands of unidentified life forms inside you. Now I thought originally this was just because of some parasite you had contracted. But when Darth Vader came aboard, He possessed a similar amount to you. He turned his monitor to face her, showing a small sample of the organisms inside her cells. There were over 20,000 of these little things inside our black-suited friend, and there's a similar amount in you. However, there were very few in all the other officers and people we've treated from your ship. Do you have any clue as to what these are? I think I do, answered Leia. In our universe, there is a mysterious thing called the Force. It's what you saw Vader using in the shuttle bay. The Force is given to us by these tiny little life forms inside us which you see called midichlorians. Normally in non-Force sensitive people they're quite low, as you saw, but those with higher numbers are capable of harnessing the Force to its potential. An elitist group known as the Jedi used to harness this power for good use, but they were eliminated when Emperor Palpatine took command of the Senate and turned the Republic into the Empire. But, asked Dollivane, curious as to where she was leading. If I have a similar amount of midichlorians to Vader, proposed Leia, then aren't I Vader's daughter? Trent stared back down at the bowling machine that stood a good 20 meters away from him. He was using his off time to relax by playing cricket in the holodeck, training for a game which he was going to play on shore leave. His skills were a little rusty. He had last trained the month before, but he was confident he could face against the 140 kph ball that was about to be launched at him. Computer, play simulation cricket training, requested Trent. Program ready. Ready to start program cricket training at your command, replied the computer in the same female monotone it always did. Hit it, responded Trent as a full set of cricket pads materialized on him. The balls started firing out of the bowling machine, each ball going in a different direction and height to Trent than the previous one. As the balls continued firing down at him, he started to think about the series of events that had happened in the past day. The mysterious Darth Vader, a secretive man with a will to destroy anything in his path. The aggressive, Galactic Empire, a group of fascist humans from an alternate universe with a strong will for total domination of the galaxy, now with a gateway to another. And the small, rebel alliance, built and run from hope, and struggling to survive. He hoped an accord could be reached between all these factions, as he played a pull shot to a ball coming at his chest at over 140 km per hour. He had been batting for more than half an hour when his thoughts and cricket were interrupted by the sound of the holodeck doors opening behind the machine, disturbing the once pristine holographic wall it was in. Out of the doors came Princess Leia, R2-D2 and C-3PO. They stared bewilderedly at Trent as the door closed behind them, returning the wall to its original holographic concrete state. Computer, pause program, ordered Trent, making the balls stop coming out and his holographic protective gear to fade out of existence, leaving him in his cricket whites. I was training for a game I was going to play on shore leave. It's all right, replied Leia. I was just coming to say goodbye. So you are taking up Admiral Picard's offer to seek out the probes? Queried Trent. Yes, it seems to be the best thing we can do to pay for your hospitality and kindness in this situation. The Arizona's going to Starbase 75 for shore leave, proposed Trent. You could get another ship from there safely to Earth, where we can provide you with political asylum from the Empire. Thanks, but I don't want to feel like some sort of special little snowflake, answered Leia. Besides, I'll be more useful out there on the Enterprise rather than in some guest quarters on a planet. Very well then, replied Trent. You know, Picard's willing to try to negotiate with the Imperials again if they come back, commented Leia. Perhaps you'll be told to go to help them with it once you're finished on shore leave. Perhaps, replied Trent. Well, we'd best be off now. Enterprise is leaving in an hour with the Tantive IV and I need to be on Enterprise. Very well then, Trent replied. Until next time. Trent waved goodbye as Princess Leia waved back as she walked back out of the holodeck. The door briefly appeared to let her out, then closed as it faded back into a wall. Trent smiled briefly, before unpausing the program and continuing his cricket training. The bridge of the Arizona was bustling with activity as it prepared to get underway. The damage to the warp core had been repaired. albeit with some effort due to the fact that the connection itself was mutilated beyond repair and had to be replaced. Outside in space, the Enterprise and the Tantive IV were both close together, ready for the Enterprise to encase the Tantive IV in its warp bubble. Captain Trent walked onto the bridge, now in his regular duty uniform. Commander Aldrin got out of the captain's chair and turned to face Trent. "All systems are nominal, sir," reported Aldrin. "Enterprise reports she's ready to go. The Galway and the Crazy Horse have tractor beams on the other Imperial vessels they're bringing to Starbase 75, and the Moscow is ready to escort the Enterprise off." "Excellent," replied Trent. "We should all be ready for a month off now." "You don't say, sir," remarked Hawk. "Is anyone else ready for Riza?" "On the contrary, I was ready to go back to my family on Andoria," announced Tetona. "I was more than ready to take time off once our mission was supposed to be over to go see my son. He's going to be 10 on the day I come back." "What about you, sir?" asked Aldrin. "What are your plans?" "I'll be on Starbase 75, playing cricket and enjoying my shore leave while I can, Commander," answered Trent. "And I won't be answering any communiques." "You sound Australian when you say that, sir," commented Hawk. "Well, it's more productive than laying in the sun attempting to get slightly burnt," smartly shot back Trent. "At least I'm being active." "And I'm not playing the most boring Earth game in existence," quickly replied Hawk. "It's a wonder that game still exists at all." "You need an appreciation for the finer things in life," jokingly commented Trent. He smiled as Hawk rolled her eyes and looked back to her console. "Sir, Enterprise is hailing us," announced Tetona. "On screen," ordered Trent. On the screen appeared the bridge of the USS Enterprise, with Admiral Picard in his command chair. To the left, Commander Worf sat in the first officer's seat, working at his station, and in what would normally be the counselor's seat on the right was Princess Leia, now wearing a Command Division Starfleet uniform with no rank pips. "It looks like the probes are going to keep us busy for a while," stated Picard. "We're getting reports that the Romulans are finding him now." "Don't worry about the cricket," replied Trent. "We'll be sure to save you a spot in one of the teams, sir." "You'd better." Picard out. The transmission ended as the viewscreen returned to the view of the Sovereign-class ship facing away from them with the Tantive IV close to it. A translucent beige bubble briefly formed around both vessels, before both suddenly began stretching until they snapped forward, disappearing in a flash of light, with the Moscow following him immediately after. The Galway and the Crazy Horse wasted no time either, enveloping the Star Destroyers in the same beige bubbles before going to warp. "Well, best not to delay any further," remarked Trent. "Hawk, plot a course to Starbase 75, Warp 8. "Aye, sir," replied Trent. She pressed a few buttons and the Arizona aligned itself in the direction the Galway and the Crazy Horse went. "Ready to engage on your command." "Hit it," ordered Trent. Outside, the Arizona looked like it had been through one hell of a fight. The scars from the previous battle still remained, scattered in blackened patches of the hull across the vessel. Nevertheless, the ship was still capable of going to warp on its own, and was about to do so for the final time before docking at Starbase 75 for a month-long period of recuperation. The ship started to stretch forwards into the stars, the warp nacelles doing their magic of creating a displacement bubble around the ship. Once the field fully enveloped the ship, it snapped forward, the warp nacelles flashing before it disappeared into the distance with a flash of light. And once again, the vacuum of space was alone. Or was it? Around the North Pole of Iva Prime, a little probe had been carefully cataloging the situation in detail. The probe, unable to be detected due to the magnetic interference from the pole, went into hyperspace before dropping out shortly after at the anomaly. It raced towards the anomaly, and upon reaching it faded out of existence as it was turned into energy to be transferred to the other universe. And then finally, the vacuum of space was empty.